everyone. Welcome to Confidently Be You. My name is Jennifer Shlomovich, and today my special guest is Tanya Jaklis, who is a certified life and leadership coach, supporting women as they rediscover and embrace who they are, prioritize their well-being, and lead authentically. She works together with her clients to create and execute a vision for their life that energizes and inspires them. Tanya, welcome.
Thanks, Jen. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice to see you. And so we're going to talk about today one of my favorite topics, which is self-care and self-compassion. But before we do that, let's get to know you a little bit more. And so how did you get started in doing what you do?
Yeah, thanks. So I've been coaching for a little over a year, and I have a background in consulting and process improvement, and so spent a lot of time in different leadership roles, so actually leading and coaching team members. And I was at a point in my life where I was just looking for something different. I was looking for something that was going to align to my values, and also something where I could do what I really enjoyed. Like I mentioned, I was leading teams and coaching team members, and that was part of the job that I absolutely loved. I loved coaching team members and helping them reach their potential. And then I got a coach and realized that there was this coaching industry out there of supporting people to, reach, for lack of better words, reach for their dreams and kind of create a life that they design, and one that energizes and inspires them. So I started getting curious. So I was at a point of just like at a crossroads. So I started getting curious of what this coaching industry is, and how do you get certified in coaching? And then I started that journey. I landed at a coaching school called IPEC and got my coaching certification there and went on that journey. And really, I guess kind of like the rest is history. I'm so excited that I made that choice and I made that move, because I really believe that each one of us has this light inside of us, and we should be able to like share it with the world, be it personal or professional, and do things that excite and inspire us.
I love that. And I can relate to your journey. And we actually went to the same coaching school, but we connected in a different way through a business group that we found each other in. But yeah, IPEC is a great program. And when I went there, I was looking to, I was always helping people and I guess coaching in some way without officially doing it.
Yeah.
And then I signed up to get those tools to be able to help people more effectively. But it was actually a whole life-changing process in there, because you go in there expecting a career change, and then it totally like shakes up your own life upside down a little bit, because you see things so differently afterwards.
Completely. Yes. Yeah, I had the exact same experience where you're right. Like it's a transformation that happens to you as well personally. And I wasn't expecting that. And so that was definitely kind of, I guess, the cherry on top, but it was a bonus. It was a bonus. Exactly. In addition to all the tools and the skills that we learned through the program. And then we went through our own transformation. And you're right. It made us, for me, yes, agreed, made me just see things differently, or see things that I wasn't even seeing, right? Because I was kind of, there was a lot of things that were blurring my vision, right? So it's almost like you're able to see more clearly when you can either tap into a new perspective or be able to approach things even differently. Even that small shift of approaching things differently sometimes opens up opportunities that we can't see until we have even that little shift or even that little transformation.
Absolutely. And I think because all of us who've been through that program, we go through that transformation, it helps us help others when they're going through the process, because we went through it ourselves.
Exactly. That's actually it. I tell my clients that all the time, that I'm on this journey with them, that I'm supporting them, but I'm also experiencing it myself, right? There's not it's a process, or it's a journey, right?
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing.
Like our growth is never a destination. Like you're always going to evolve in some capacity. So today we're going to talk about self-care, which is a topic that you and I are both very passionate about. We've talked about it together before. So what is your definition of self-care?
Yeah, such a good question. I think for me, self-care is really just taking care of myself, right? Like
Mhm.
taking care of myself. Um, and that can be different aspects, right? Physical, mental, emotional. Um, I think I I think when I think back even like a couple years ago, I think I always thought about it as like physical. And I think
Mhm.
now at the stage of where I am in my life is taking care of myself. Yes, my physical body and kind of physical, right? Exercising, eating well, nutrition, all of that. But then also the other aspects, right? So mental health, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being. I think that all falls into but for me, it all falls into that bucket of taking care of yourself or self-care.
Yeah, I resonate with your definition a lot. I used to have, I think there's this big misconception, and I think at one point many years ago, I kind of had this is, self-care is, bubble baths and facials or going to the spa. And yeah, that's a type of self-care, but boundary setting is a huge piece of self-care, which is a big piece of the work that I do. And, setting boundaries is it protects your time, it's advocating for yourself, and advocating for yourself is a huge piece of self-care, because you don't want to be a doormat, otherwise your energy is going to be shot. and and just being more intentional with your time, um, that's also another misconception, is that it's a luxury, there's not enough time, because we're all busy, especially as moms. You're juggling all these different things, you feel like the world is resting on your shoulders, and you feel guilty if you want to watch a 30-minute Netflix show sometimes. So which actually that could be self-care too, but yeah, there's all these different things that go in that bucket of self-care. Making doctor's appointments, like at the end of the year, I have like I just started making my appointments, I try to be on top of those things. Taking care of your health, your spirituality, doing things that benefit you in all ways is really what self-care is.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely. And especially like looking at it like looking at it holistically. And I totally relate to that with even doctor's appointments. I mean, last week actually I had made a bunch of doctor's appointments, and we're going to all the doctor's appointments, and I was like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, this takes so much time and so much effort. But actually what I kept repeating in my head is that this is a form of self-care. This is a way
Yeah.
for me to take care of myself, right? So yeah, it's a hassle to get to the doctor's office to wait, doctor's offices can be, right, but it's
Yeah.
a form of self-care. You're taking care of your health. I have to schedule my mammogram. It's on my list of things to do, right? And that's a form of taking care of yourself and making sure that you have what you need, and you're carving out the intentional, right? Being intentional about it, like carving out the time and the energy to dedicate to it. And I know for me, when I do those things, I feel good about, right? I feel good about it, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I love what you said about it's not a luxury, right? It's so true. I almost see it as almost it's a necessity, right? It's
Yeah.
necessary. It's necessary for us to be able to show up as our best selves, for us to show up just as we want to, right? Like,
Yeah.
we all have different things that we work towards. Like with my children, for example, like I want to be patient, I want to be kind to them, I want to be helpful, I want to be supportive, right? But if I've not taken care of myself, usually all that kind of goes out the window.
It's
Right?
so
It's more
very hard.
challenging. Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
challenging.
Well, analogies that I like to use with my clients are, for example, with our cell phone batteries. We have no problem charging our cell phone. We have to. We need our phone. Well, we need us too. And self-care is like our form of recharging. And if you don't make those doctor's appointments and you don't take care of your health, yeah, maybe you're fine for a while, but then you're going to fall apart. At least that's been my experience
I
with things.
agree.
You're going to fall apart either because you're overtired, you're overwhelmed. And so like for me, for example, I have a high tolerance for stress, which is good and bad. It's a superpower, but it also cannot be so good, because I used to just like, oh, I can just tolerate this. I keep tolerating. And then one day you wake up for work and you don't want to get out of bed. Like you feel like the whole world is imploding on you. And that's a practice I stopped doing, especially the past few years. I've really become intentional with that. So what are your experiences when you haven't practiced self-care?
Oh yeah. Yeah. What a great question. Um, yeah, I mean, the sense of tiredness and exhaustion definitely are things that kind of come to mind. I have very, very low energy. Everything feels like a chore when, everything feels like it's hard. Everything
Yeah.
feels like, oh my gosh, I have to do this or I have to do that. And kind of when I know that I haven't been taking care of myself is not only low energy and exhaustion, but that I'm not fully experiencing even the joyful things of life, like, right? So things that I enjoy doing, for example, or that are fun, it's just, okay, one more thing. Let me just get through it's more of this approaching it with, oh my gosh, let me just get through this. It's one other thing. And that's almost like that's a signal for me that, hey, get curious, Tanya, because something is off. Like, you should be enjoying this, you should be having fun. Like, what's wrong here? And it's oftentimes, it's not that it's wrong, it's just that I haven't taken the time to take care of myself. I've been so focused on all my responsibilities, which obviously we all have the list of things to do. But what I have started doing is adding myself onto that responsibility list, right? Adding myself onto that to-do list that we all I know for me, I tend to I have all these lists and they're great, but at the end of the day, if they are not making you feel energized or inspired or a sense of calm, and rather it's like draining your energy and it's causing the exhaustion, then it's really getting curious of, are the right things on the list, or is there something else that I need that I need to be intentional about, right? And kind of like make time for. So yeah, so that's been kind of my experience when it's not present, and it can happen. It happens, right?
Yeah,
Life
I think
happens.
it happens to all of us in some way. And I like what you said about asking yourself a question, because when you ask, you don't realize things until you stop and ask yourself a question. And then you're like, oh, otherwise we go into like automatic pilot. But when we actually stop and ask ourselves something, then we get clear on why we're feeling the way we're feeling. And yeah, like for me, I resonate a lot with what you said. I get into survival mode. Like, I realize I get into like a place of like survival mode. It impacts I start doing emotional eating. I'll notice where I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to eat this and I'll be better tomorrow. And then I'm stressed tomorrow. And I notice when I slide into that I need to give myself a timeout, basically. And timeouts, and something I have, and sometimes, you can get really, really busy. Sometimes you do have a lot of things pulling you all over the place. And especially if you have younger kids, like my son, now he's almost 16, but when he was younger, I started, especially when I was going through the IPEC program, juggling a full-time job, creating a business, going, to a 10-month coaching program, and then having family stuff going on and just all of that. I started just implementing like even 30 minutes a day, just giving myself 30 minutes to either just go for a walk, space out, listen to something inspirational, whatever it is, or there's so many guided meditations. I know a lot of people struggle with meditation, and I do too sometimes. I love meditation, but your brain can kind of go like all over the place. But there's so many guided meditations you can find on YouTube, and I'll find something and I'll put it on, and then I'll give myself some journaling time, just dumping in a journal. So for me, 30 minutes in my room, telling everybody not to bother me for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
and just doing that you may not think it's a lot of time, but you can really reset yourself. You can really pull yourself out of a slump when you do that for yourself.
Yeah, completely, like 100%. I think that completely resonates with me, even the short amount of time. And I will say, actually, I don't know if you heard my alarm had just gone off, but the alarm was basically, I have these alarms on my phone that I recently put in there of just taking time to pause and just to breathe. Right.
Oh, it's so important.
And it's just something like as simple as that. And I love what you said too about meditation. Like I just recently got into meditation, and sometimes that's super helpful. And if I've got, I can do 10 minutes of like a 10-minute guided meditation in the morning, that kind of sets me up for the day. And sometimes though, if I don't have that amount of time, even 2 or 3 minutes, I'll sit and just close my eyes, and literally I will just count my breaths, just so that my mind doesn't go. Like I will count the inhale and the exhale, and you don't need anything for that, right? It's just sitting. You can close your eyes or open your eyes, but then just focusing on your breath, like inhale, exhale, like, and sometimes I do maybe 5 rounds or 10 rounds of that. And that even helps me to reset, especially like you said, we're all busy. And if we're working full time and we've got children, or we're doing like, we've got our own business that we're starting, all these things, and it's bam, bam, bam. Sometimes we don't even have time to literally just breathe, right? To like pause and breathe.
It's so true.
So being able to find those creative ways that work for you, I feel like there's no right or wrong way to do self-care. I think there's just the way that works for you. And so finding those ways that help you to just feel grounded and to feel, really just to feel grounded, right? And at ease, so that you have the capacity to take on everything or anything that really comes your way.
Yeah, I agree 100% that it's so important. Even just a couple minutes can seriously do wonders. My favorite analogy that I've heard about meditation a while back on a podcast is they were saying it's like a snow globe. You shake up a snow globe, there's all that snow floating around, but when you set it down and it's still, everything floats down and you can see the scene inside the globe clearly. And that's kind of like our thoughts. Our thoughts are like the snow in a snow globe. So everything is just like shaken up all crazy. But when you have that pause and you have that stillness, it just allows all of that craziness to just settle down. And then you have some clarity from that. And so whether it's 2 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever you want to do, or even just a walk, listening to music for a 10-minute walk can do a lot. And
I love that imagery. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And so one of the things we were going to talk about today also is an overlooked component of self-care, which is self-compassion and how we talk to ourselves. So what are your thoughts on self-compassion and the importance of that in a self-care practice?
Yeah. We are with ourselves 24/7, right? And like you said, even the thoughts that are going through our mind and kind of the voice track, right? That's with us all the time. And so we're always listening to it. So my thought on that is like, use some kind words, right? Use kind words towards yourself, similarly to how you talk to a dear friend. Because
I love that.
It's true. I remember hearing it from, I think it was also on a podcast, but get curious. Would you talk to a friend? Like, listen, like, first build awareness. Like, what is the language that you're using with yourself? What are you saying to yourself when, for example, when you didn't do something, like, for example, around self-care? Oh, shoot, I didn't go on my walk today. Or, oh no, I didn't exercise today. Right. Instead of beating yourself up about it and like, putting yourself down, it's getting curious. Okay, what could I do differently today to have fit it? What could I have done differently today to have fit it in? What can I do differently tomorrow to be able to fit in a walk or going to the gym if that's important to you? And that's part of like your self-care practice, right? So
Yeah.
instead of like beating ourselves up, which I find drains our energy, how can we talk to ourselves in a way that that uplifts us and like encourages us versus like tears us down? And just really that prompt of getting curious, like, would I say this exact same thing to a dear friend, right, or someone that I really loved? And then kind of getting curious, and if the answer is no, then it's going one step further, like, well, how would I talk to a dear friend, right? How can I kind of turn that language towards myself? And that's, I think, where the self-compassion and the self-love and cultivating like love for yourself is, I think, such I honestly believe is a form of self-care.
I love what you just said about that, about talking to yourself like a dear friend. It's so true. We can be our own worst enemies, and you don't realize sometimes, like, I know I didn't realize how terrible I used to talk to myself within myself as a former people pleaser and just sacrificing a lot of my happiness just to please other people. And just, I think a very common thought many of us go through is the not good enough. Like, in some way we feel like we're not good enough in some way, and challenging that, especially when we're trying to do something new, or we want to open up a business, or we have an idea about something, or we want to say something at a meeting, but we're afraid they won't like our idea. So, because we think we're not good enough. And then that falls under that like self-compassion, self-talk part. And I think too, getting back to what you're saying about, I really liked what you said about looking at why, getting curious, like, instead of saying, oh, I'm a failure. Well, why did things not go as I planned? Why did I not go to the gym? And sometimes it's an expectation shift. Maybe you want to go to the gym 7 days a week, but maybe that's not realistic. Maybe 3 days a week. I actually just started going back to the gym a couple weeks ago. I just signed up for Planet Fitness. I was like, I need to get back because I've just been sitting around at home a lot, working. And my commute, I used to have a commute and I used to get a lot of walking in that way. And then I did have a gym habit before COVID happened. And then, that's what happened. And so I finally got back into it. And I give myself a range. Like, my goal is to get to the gym 3 times to 5 times a week. My minimum is 3, but 5 is like my like ultimate super exciting goal. So it's being realistic with your expectations and like celebrating, and looking at your progress. I think we also spend a lot of time looking at what doesn't go well, or things weren't perfect and things didn't go as planned, instead of looking at what did go well. Even if you go to the gym that one time during the week, that's something to celebrate, I think. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm so glad you brought up celebration, because that's exactly right. I think it's so important. And it sounds like in your example, even like you have a goal and then you have a stretch goal, right? Like, it's like stretching yourself, right? But so I love that you give yourself that range, but then celebrating, yeah, for sure, celebrating and acknowledging. And I think that's actually another form of self-talk that we can nurture, right? So
Absolutely.
like, pat yourself on the back, right? Like, obviously, acknowledge yourself, validate yourself, right? And maybe it's at the end of each day, right? What am I proud of today? Or what did I do today that I can celebrate, right? There's always something, and it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have, it can be small, it could be medium sized, whatever, but there's always something oftentimes to celebrate and acknowledge. And so I think that's also a key piece of self-compassion, self-love, self-talk, and showing ourselves really just showing ourselves care and love
Yeah.
and helping us to kind of nurture our well-being, which honestly, I think, I know it's not the topic for today, but I think also like builds our resilience, right? When things happen that aren't what we expected or don't go as planned. I mean,
Yeah.
pandemic is a perfect example, right? Like it helps to build resilience for those times where things are super, super challenging, right? And being able to talk to ourselves in a kind and loving way only supports us to kind of get through those challenges in a way that, in a way that's effective and that's uplifting versus like draining and breaking us down.
Absolutely. I, in fact, just posted a video on my channel about reframing situations. So looking at the past, and instead of beating yourself up, what were the lessons in that experience? And sometimes you need an experience to bring you to the next experience and the next experience. So everything happens for a reason. And at the grand scheme of things, there's really no making mistakes. It's all lessons in some way, I think.
Yeah, completely. And I think sometimes it's challenging to see the lessons in experiences when we are kind of what you were saying earlier, when we're so much on autopilot, right? And we're just going through all the motions and doing all the things that sometimes when we take a time to pause and settle, like your snow globe like analogy, which I love that, like, and just let things settle. Sometimes we can just see different things, either the lesson in an experience or even an opportunity in something that's kind of been presented to you, right? But sometimes we need to create that space to be able to see those things, because when we're in the thick of it, sometimes it can be really challenging.
Oh, for sure. The emotions. It's like when you're in a storm, right? It's like a storm's happening and all you're seeing is clouds and rain and you can't see anything else. And then, or a blizzard. And then when it passes away, the sun comes out, it's like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's exactly like that. Yes. Yeah. And being really mindful.
Yes, absolutely. Being mindful about things. And again, not being in that automatic pilot reactional place. One of my favorite forms of self-care that also goes into self-compassion, self-talk, and just connecting with yourself as your own best friend is, for me, I like to go to coffee shops and with my journal. Or once in a while, I'll take myself out to lunch with my journal.
Love it.
And there's something really nice about having a meal or just sitting with a cup of coffee by yourself with your journal. And that's another way I've been able to connect with myself over the years and really get clear. I started that when I was in the middle of going through a divorce 10, 11 years ago. And it was a way for me to really connect with my emotions and understand my feelings and really unpack what was going on. And so I started treating myself like my own best friend by taking myself out on coffee dates with my journal.
Oh my gosh. I love that, Jen. That is so, so beautiful. Like, I think that one, journaling can be so cathartic, right?
It's really
like getting all the emotions like out and just putting them out, and then almost taking a step back and being able to look at what you've written gives you also a fresh perspective, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that you're making time to just be with yourself, right? Be with yourself in a journal over a cup of coffee or a meal, right? I think that's just like what a gift that you're giving yourself, that I don't think, comes naturally to a lot of people, right? Like, I'm going to go eat by myself, or I'm going to go have a cup of coffee by myself, right?
Yeah.
But if, treating yourself as your own best friend, you'd go to have coffee with your best friend, right? You
exactly.
get excited
so
to
why
go
not
see
take
them.
yourself out?
Exactly.
And also for me, it was a way. At the time, my son was younger and I was very busy, much busier then. I could do it when I was at the office, because I get a hour lunch break. And so I could just go someplace by myself with my journal when I had my lunch break.
Yeah.
And sneak in some self-care for myself.
Yes. What a beautiful example. And
Thanks.
so possible too, right? It's not like it's something that's out of reach by any means, right? Yeah, I love that example. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. And the other thing I want to add too is, even if you don't know what you want to say, sometimes I just doodle. I'll just like doodle stuff, or I'll just ask myself the question, what am I feeling today? What am I grateful for today? Or if I heard something inspiring, I might jot it down and just see where my brain wanders. But journaling really is a very powerful practice because it allows you to unpack that mental clutter that's in your head, because we all have mental clutter.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it's another way outside of meditation where you can just observe your thoughts and really see what's going on in your life, because you're writing it out in front of you. And it's kind of like talking to a friend, and maybe sometimes there's things you don't want to talk about with other people. You just want to talk to yourself. So the journal provides that space.
Yeah. Completely. Yeah, no, completely. That's been my experience as well. And I think too, is that when journaling, when you let yourself just write whatever comes to you, right? There's this method called morning pages, where it's just writing anything that it's called morning pages. And it's just in the morning, just downloading basically everything that's coming to you. No judgment, no filter, right? Like no filtering at all either. Like you said, like sometimes you don't want to talk to someone about it, but this is you in your journal, right? Just put it all in there. Don't filter, and if you want to, then just crumple it up and throw it away. You can do that too. Or if you want to save it and look at it, but it's just a way to download, like you said, like everything that sometimes takes up a lot of space in our mind. And so sometimes even just the act of releasing it and putting it down, sometimes that is just even one way to kind of let go of it, so it doesn't weigh you down or take up space.
I really like that morning pages method. I might try that. I sometimes I journal in the morning. Sometimes I don't. It depends, but just to like see what's on your mind when you first wake up, I feel like that could be a very interesting insight within yourself, without just randomly writing things, just to see what because we have stuff floating around in our subconscious all the time that we have no clue what's back there.
Yeah, exactly.
Until it comes to the surface.
Yeah, exactly. And it's before you've kind of consumed anything, right? So it's not like you're reacting to anything. It's just you in your natural state, almost, if that's the first thing you do in the morning, right? If that's the first thing you do in the morning. So it's less reactionary. Yeah. I'm
going to try that. Thank you for suggesting that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on here and chatting with you. Before we wrap up, what are some resources you would like to recommend for anyone watching today?
Yeah, so I love this question. And I would say like two resources and recent books that have kind of come to mind for me that have been helpful. One is called Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett. He's a Yale professor. And it's a method for understanding our emotions and our feelings, and like naming them and working through them. And he gives a lovely process and method there where it's applicable for adults and kids. So for those also like moms and dads, right? And children, of helping them to identify what are their emotions, and like creating the space to talk about their feelings and letting those kind of go through. That book has been so helpful, and I've kind of gone back to a lot of pieces of it and read it, and it's very like practical and applicable. And then another book that I would also recommend is called Burnout. How to complete the stress cycle. So I'm a huge fan of Brene Brown. I don't know.
I love Brene Brown.
I love Brene. So Brene didn't write this book, Burnout, but she interviewed the authors on her podcast.
Oh, okay.
I think it was sometime last year. I'll also send you the link if you want to share it with your viewers.
Yeah, that would be great. Absolutely.
But the book is also great, and it talks about how, and actually the two books are kind of linked. The themes is that if we don't process our emotions or feel our emotions, good, bad, ugly, whatever, right? Like the good emotions and the bad none of it is good or bad, right? It's all trying to tell us something, but
Right.
oftentimes we don't, for whatever reason, we don't let ourselves feel certain emotions, right? So what happens with those, so the premise of this book is what happens with those emotions is they get stuck. They get stuck in our
Mm,
body and then
yeah.
manifest in different ways, right? So how do we feel those emotions and let them work through us? Like they actually use an image of a tunnel, right? So emotions need to go through the tunnel, and if you don't let them complete, like
Ooh.
go through the entire cycle, like go through that tunnel from
Mhm.
beginning to end, they get stuck and end up manifesting in different ways, which sometimes,
Wow.
like for the title of the book, can lead to burnout, overwhelm, all those things that can feel very exhausting and heavy. So those are two books that actually come to mind.
Those
That has,
are some great sounding resources. I love the tunnel analogy that you just shared, because you always hear you got to feel to heal, but I feel like that puts more of, I think, a tangible way of seeing what that really is about.
yeah, and that's what they say. They say that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? To all the
Mhm.
emotions, that, so to your point of like we have to feel to heal, right? But there's a big,
Yeah.
so it's the idea too is that it's not permanent. They pass, right? Like any kind of
Mhm.
emotion is not forever. So but letting
Right.
yourself and allowing yourself and giving yourself the permission to feel whatever you're experiencing, right? And kind of
Yeah.
completing that cycle so that it doesn't get stuck in some way in your body and then manifest in different ways, be it exhaustion, burnout, um, mindless eating, like all those things that
All
can
those things
sometimes
all come from, right. Right, exactly. I love that. That thanks for recommending those. I'm going to definitely check those out. And I'm also going to put the links for all of that in the notes below. And
great.
what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so people can find me on my website. It's just my name, www.tanyajaklis.com.
Mhm.
So they can connect with me there. And then I'm also on Instagram and on LinkedIn. So I would definitely
Okay.
welcome people connecting with me on those platforms as well, if that's their platform of choice.
Okay, great. I'll also include all the links in the notes below. This way people can find you easily.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Jen.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on today, talking about this very important topic. And I know we talked about having you on for future discussions, so I'm looking forward to having you back. And thank you all who have been watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.